New Terra's bustling spaceport was always a hub of activity. Ships from distant worlds landed with precision, offloading cargo and passengers from across the galaxy. But today there was an unusual hush among the crowds. People whispered nervously and kept their distance, forming an invisible barrier around the central platform. In the middle of this uneasy circle stood a lone figure. Tall, graceful, and undeniably alien. Her skin shimmered with an unnatural light, hues of silver and violet swirling across her, as if the cosmos itself was etched into her being. She moved with the quiet confidence of someone used to being feared. Her name was Alara, a being from the Quasar sector, a place known only through whispers and myths, spoken of with both awe and terror. Her people, it was said, possessed powers that no one fully understood, powers that could bend reality or destroy it. Alara stood alone, her expression unreadable, though a faint sadness clung to her. No one dared approach, and she seemed used to it. The galaxy was a vast place, but its inhabitants were united in one thing: fear of the unknown. Liam watched from the edge of the crowd. A young engineer and pilot, Liam was no stranger to the strange and unusual. But there was something about Alara that pulled at him, an aura of loneliness beneath her striking appearance. While everyone else kept their distance, Liam took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Alara?" he called out, his voice steady but uncertain. She turned slowly, her glowing eyes fixing on him. There was a moment of silence, the crowd watching with bated breath, expecting something to go horribly wrong. But Alara simply raised an eyebrow, surprised that anyone had dared speak to her. "I'm Liam," he continued, his heart pounding but his voice calm. "I saw you standing here. Do you need help finding your way?" Her expression softened, though her voice remained cool. "I do not need assistance," she replied, her tone clipped. "But you are the first to offer." Liam smiled, stepping closer despite the murmurs of the crowd. "Well, maybe I'm just not as smart as the rest of them." For the first time in what felt like a long time, Alara smiled. A small, fleeting smile, but it was real. "Or perhaps you are the only one brave enough." The tension in the air began to dissipate as Liam and Alara stood there, exchanging words while the rest of the spaceport watched in disbelief. What they feared, Liam could not yet understand. But something about Alara told him that her isolation was far more painful than whatever danger she might represent. "You want to get out of here?" Liam asked, sensing her discomfort with the crowd's stares. Alara nodded, her eyes still scanning the faces around her. "Lead the way, human." With that, they walked away from the spaceport, leaving behind a baffled crowd and stepping into something far more unpredictable. As Liam led Alara through the crowded streets of New Terra, he couldn't help but notice the way people reacted to her presence. They kept their distance, eyes wide, with a mix of fear and curiosity. Some even whispered under their breath, exchanging glances as though they couldn't believe what they were seeing. He glanced over at Alara, her face calm but guarded. She was used to this, he realized, this fear, this isolation. But it didn't seem to bother her anymore. Or perhaps she was simply very good at hiding it. "Is it always like this?" Liam asked, breaking the silence between them. Alara glanced at him, her glowing eyes softening just slightly. "For as long as I can remember," she replied. "No one dares come close, not unless they are forced to." Liam frowned, trying to understand. Why? What are they so afraid of? She hesitated, as if weighing how much to tell him. "My people are different. We have abilities that others do not understand. To them, we are dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Alara stopped walking, her eyes locking with Liam's. "We can manipulate matter, energy, and even time in ways that no one else can. It makes us powerful, yes, but it also makes us feared." Liam considered her words carefully. The galaxy was vast, filled with all manner of life forms, many of which had unique abilities. But there was something about Alara's people, the Quasari, that struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest travelers. And yet, standing here with her now, Liam didn't feel fear. He felt curiosity, and something else. Compassion. "Well," he said, trying to lighten the mood, "I'm not scared." Alara's lips curved into the faintest smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That may change," she said quietly. They walked in silence for a while, the city bustling around them, but the space around Alara and Liam remained strangely empty. People skirted them, their eyes filled with suspicion, and Liam could feel the weight of their stares. But he didn't care. For some reason, he felt a pull toward Alara, something he couldn't explain. It wasn't just her powers or her otherworldly beauty, it was the loneliness he sensed in her, the isolation she had grown accustomed to. Finally, they arrived at a quiet park on the outskirts of the city. Liam found a bench under a large tree and gestured for Alara to sit. She hesitated for a moment before sitting down beside him, her posture still as regal and composed as ever. "I don't understand why they're so afraid," Liam said after a moment. "I mean, yeah, you're powerful, but—" Alara cut him off with a soft, bitter laugh. "You say that now, but you do not know what I am capable of." Liam met her gaze, his expression serious. "Then tell me." Alara's eyes glowed faintly as she looked away, staring out at the quiet park. "Once, on my home planet, I tried to use my abilities to stop a storm that was destroying a city, but I lost control. The storm grew stronger, and the city was leveled. Thousands of lives were lost because of me." Liam listened in silence, his heart aching at the pain in her voice. "I have spent my life running from what I am," Alara continued, her voice barely a whisper. "And in doing so, I have become something to be feared." Liam shook his head. "You're not a monster, Alara. You're just different. That doesn't make you dangerous." Alara looked at him, her eyes searching his for any sign of fear or doubt, but all she found was sincerity. "You're brave, Liam," she said quietly. "Foolish, perhaps, but brave." Liam smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." For the first time in what felt like forever, Alara allowed herself to relax, if only for a moment. Maybe, just maybe, this human was different. And maybe she didn't have to be alone anymore. In the days following their first meeting, word spread quickly through New Terra about the human who dared to befriend the Quasari woman. Liam and Alara's names were on the lips of every merchant, traveler, and citizen in the city. While most stayed away, others watched from a distance, intrigued by Liam's apparent fearlessness. The whispers, however, soon turned to warnings. One afternoon, as Liam tinkered with a plasma engine in his workshop, his longtime friend and fellow engineer, Marcus, walked in, looking grim. Marcus had always been practical, cautious, and utterly unshakable, until now. "You've really lost it this time, Liam," Marcus said, crossing his arms as he leaned against the wall. "Everyone's talking about you and that Quasari woman. You don't know what you're dealing with." Liam didn't look up from his work, calmly tightening a bolt on the engine. "I think I know her a bit better than everyone else. She's not what they think she is." "She's dangerous, Liam," Marcus said sharply. "Her people, they're not like us. You've heard the stories. People who get close to them don't survive. You need to end this before it's too late." Liam set his tools down and finally met Marcus's gaze. "I'm not turning my back on her. She's been through enough. She doesn't need me to abandon her too." Marcus's expression softened slightly, but the concern in his eyes didn't fade. "I get it, man. You're trying to help. But the galaxy is full of things we don't understand, and the Quasari are at the top of that list. Just be careful. There's a reason everyone stays away from them." Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's not like the others. She's lonely, Marcus, and she's scared of what she can do. I'm not walking away." Marcus studied Liam for a long moment before nodding, though it was clear he didn't fully agree. "Just promise me you won't get in over your head." Liam gave him a small smile. "When have I ever done that?" Marcus rolled his eyes. "All the time." After Marcus left, Liam leaned back in his chair, staring at the half-finished engine. He knew Marcus meant well, but he couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was wrong about Alara. Yes, she was powerful. Yes, she was feared. But there was so much more to her than that. Something deeper. Something that called to him in ways he couldn't fully explain. His thoughts were interrupted when the door to his workshop slid open, and Alara stepped inside. Her presence filling the space like a quiet storm. She had a way of moving, graceful but deliberate, as if she was always aware of how her power could affect the world around her. "You heard what they've been saying," she said, her voice soft but steady. Liam nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "Yeah, I don't care." Alara's violet eyes flickered with something close to sadness. "You should. They're right to be afraid." Liam shook his head. "No, they're not. They don't know you." "And you do?" she asked, her gaze piercing. He took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I want to." For a moment they stood in silence, the air between them charged with unspoken words. Then, without warning, Alara's expression darkened and she turned away. "You're a fool, Liam," she whispered, her voice laced with regret. "You're putting yourself in danger by being near me." But Liam didn't back down. "I'm not scared of you, Alara." She spun around, her eyes flashing with an intensity he hadn't seen before. "You should be. You don't understand what I can do, what I've done." Liam stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Then show me. Help me understand." Alara stared at him, her chest rising and falling with each labored breath. For a moment it seemed like she might push him away, like she might retreat back into the walls she had built around herself. But then something in her broke. "You want to understand?" she said quietly, her hands trembling as she held them out in front of her. Liam watched as a faint glow began to radiate from her fingertips, a soft, pulsating light that seemed almost alive. Slowly, the air around them began to hum with energy, and the objects in the room, tools, parts, machinery, began to shift and float, suspended in midair. "This is what I am," Alara whispered, her voice filled with a mix of fear and sorrow. "I can control energy, manipulate matter, reshape reality itself. I could destroy this entire city if I wanted to, and no one would be able to stop me." Liam's breath caught in his throat as he watched the display of power, the sheer force of her abilities overwhelming. But even as the room trembled around them, he saw the pain in her eyes, the weight of the burden she carried. Gently, he reached out and took her hand, the glow dimming slightly as their fingers intertwined. "I don't care about any of that," he said softly. "You're not dangerous, Alara. You're just scared, and I'm not leaving you to face this alone." Alara's eyes widened, her expression one of disbelief. No one had ever spoken to her like this, with such unwavering kindness. Slowly, the energy around them faded and the objects settled back to the ground. The room grew still again. For the first time in a long time, Alara felt a flicker of hope, small and fragile, but real. "You should be afraid," she whispered again, though her voice lacked the conviction it once had. But Liam just smiled, his hand still holding hers. "Maybe, but I'm not." The days following Alara's demonstration passed in a blur. Liam continued his work in the workshop, and Alara often found herself returning, drawn to the quiet comfort of his presence. He never asked her to perform her abilities again, never pried into the pain that haunted her past, but he made it clear in every word and action that she was welcome. And slowly, she began to feel something unfamiliar: safety. One afternoon, as they walked together through the city's quieter streets, Liam noticed that the people who had once stared in fear were now keeping an even wider distance. Rumors had spread like wildfire after the market incident. Alara's display of power had left an indelible mark on New Terra, and the citizens were terrified of what she might do next. Liam didn't let it bother him, but he could see the weight it placed on Alara. "They'll never stop fearing me, will they?" she asked quietly, her gaze focused on the ground as they walked. Liam hesitated before answering. "Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. You don't owe them anything." Alara stopped walking, turning to face him. "And what about you, Liam? Why do you keep standing by me when everyone else runs away?" Liam looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "Because I see more than your powers. I see you." Her expression softened, a rare vulnerability showing through. "And what is it that you see?" Liam smiled, though there was a seriousness in his tone. "I see someone who's been pushed away her whole life. Someone who's stronger than anyone realizes, not because of her powers, but because of how much she's endured. I see someone worth standing by." For the first time, Alara couldn't find the words to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like this, as if she were more than the force that everyone feared, as if she were just herself. In the silence that followed, something shifted between them. It wasn't just the connection they had forged through shared moments or the understanding Liam had offered her. It was something deeper, something fragile, yet undeniable. Alara didn't speak, but she didn't need to. The look in her eyes, the way her posture softened, the way she finally allowed herself to breathe in his presence, all of it said more than words ever could. And for Liam, that was enough. As they continued walking through the quiet streets of New Terra, the galaxy around them seemed to grow smaller, the whispers of fear fading into the background. In this moment, they weren't an engineer and a feared alien. They were just two people, two souls, no longer alone. And for the first time, Alara allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be feared forever. The sun dipped low over New Terra, casting long shadows across the city's skyline as the hum of activity began to quiet. In the heart of the spaceport district, Liam and Alara sat on the roof of his workshop, watching the ships come and go. It had become their routine, a peaceful break from the relentless whispers of fear and isolation that followed Alara everywhere she went. "Does it ever get easier?" Alara asked, her voice barely louder than the breeze. Liam glanced at her, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "The stares, the whispers," she continued, not looking at him. "Everywhere I go, it's the same. Fear. No one dares approach, no one dares speak, except you." Liam hesitated. He could see the weight those words carried, the years of isolation that had defined her existence. He wanted to tell her it would get easier, that people would learn to see past their fear, but he couldn't lie. He'd seen how ingrained that fear was in the galaxy. "It doesn't matter what they think," Liam said softly. "What matters is what you think, what you believe about yourself." Alara finally turned to face him, her glowing eyes searching his for something. Maybe understanding, maybe hope. "And what do you believe about me, Liam?" He didn't hesitate. "I believe you're stronger than any of them realize. Not just because of your powers, but because of everything you've survived. They're too scared to see it, but I'm not." For a moment, Alara was silent, absorbing his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever seen beyond her abilities, beyond the danger she represented. She had spent her whole life running from what she was, hiding from herself as much as from others. But Liam was different. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He accepted her, even when she couldn't accept herself. "I don't know if I'll ever believe that," she whispered. "But thank you for saying it." Liam gave her a small, reassuring smile. "You will, eventually." Before Alara could respond, an alarm blared in the distance. Both of them snapped to attention, their eyes scanning the horizon. A large spacecraft, far bigger than any of the usual freighters or civilian vessels, was descending rapidly toward the city. "That's not a normal transport ship," Liam muttered, standing quickly. Alara's expression darkened. "It's a Confederation military vessel." Liam's stomach dropped. Why would they send a military ship here? Alara didn't answer, but the tension in her posture told him everything he needed to know. Whoever was on that ship, they weren't here for friendly negotiations. "I think they've come for me," she said quietly. Liam's heart pounded in his chest. He'd known that Alara was different, that her people were powerful and feared, but he hadn't considered the full extent of the danger she might be in. The Confederation didn't send military ships for minor concerns. This was serious. "We need to go," Liam said urgently, already moving toward the ladder. "If they're looking for you, we can't just stay here and wait." Alara didn't move. Her eyes remained fixed on the descending ship, her expression unreadable. "Running won't change anything. They'll find me eventually. They always do." Liam stopped, turning back to face her. "Then we don't run. We fight." Alara looked at him, surprised by the conviction in his voice. "Fight the Confederation? Do you have any idea what you're suggesting?" "I know exactly what I'm suggesting," Liam said firmly. "We don't let them take you. You're not alone in this, Alara." For a moment, Alara's expression softened, but the doubt lingered in her eyes. "Liam, you don't know what they're capable of. You don't know what I'm capable of. If I lose control—" "You won't," he interrupted. "You won't, because I'll be with you. We'll figure this out together." The resolve in his voice cut through her uncertainty, and slowly, she nodded. "All right. Together." As the military vessel touched down on the outskirts of the city, Liam and Alara prepared. They moved quickly through the streets, avoiding the curious crowds gathering to watch the Confederation's arrival. Alara's presence, as always, drew glances, but this time, no one dared approach. The city felt different, charged with an undercurrent of fear and anticipation. Liam led them to a hidden workshop on the edge of the spaceport, a place where he had once worked on classified projects. It wasn't much, but it would provide some cover while they figured out what to do next. "Do you think they'll try to capture you?" Liam asked as they entered the building, locking the door behind them. Alara nodded. "If they know I'm here, yes. The Confederation doesn't like loose ends." Liam's jaw tightened. "We need to stay ahead of them. Do you have any idea what they'll do if they catch you?" Ilara's expression darkened. I won't let them catch me. There was a moment of silence as they both processed the gravity of the situation. Liam could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, but he refused to let fear take hold. Ilara needed him, and he wasn't going to back down now. As they began gathering what little supplies they had, the door suddenly burst open with a deafening crash. Liam spun around, reaching for the plasma pistol he had stashed nearby, but it was too late. A squad of heavily armed soldiers flooded into the room, their weapons trained on Ilara. Don't move, the lead soldier barked, his voice amplified by the helmet he wore. By order of the Confederation, you are under arrest. Liam stepped in front of Ilara instinctively, his heart racing. She's done nothing wrong. The soldier's helmeted gaze shifted to Liam, unimpressed. Step aside, human. This is Confederation business. Ilara's eyes flared with a faint glow, and Liam could feel the air around them hum with energy. She was preparing to defend herself, to unleash her powers if necessary. But Liam knew what that would mean. If she used her abilities against them, it would confirm their worst fears, and the entire galaxy would turn against her. He had to stop this before it escalated. Wait, Liam said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. You don't have to do this. The lead soldier raised his weapon, his patience clearly running thin. Last warning, step aside or face the consequences. Liam's mind raced, searching for something, anything that might de-escalate the situation. But before he could speak, Ilara's voice cut through the tension. I'll go with you, she said softly, stepping forward. Liam's heart dropped. Ilara, no. She shook her head, her expression calm but resolute. It's the only way, Liam. If I don't go, they'll destroy everything around me. I can't let that happen. The soldiers moved in, securing Ilara in restraints designed to suppress her abilities. Liam watched helplessly as they led her toward the door, his fists clenched in frustration. But as they reached the threshold, Ilara glanced back at him, her eyes filled with a quiet, unspoken promise. This wasn't over, and Liam knew in that moment he would do whatever it took to get her back. Hours felt like days as Liam sat in the now empty workshop, the remnants of the soldiers' raids scattered around him. Ilara had been taken, and the weight of that reality settled over him like a dark cloud. He replayed the moment again and again in his mind, her calm acceptance, the look she gave him before she left, as if silently asking him to trust her plan. But Liam couldn't sit idly by. She had surrendered to protect him and the city, but Liam wasn't about to let the Confederation take her without a fight. He stood and began pacing, his mind working through a dozen plans, each more desperate than the last. The Confederation was powerful, and their detention centers were nearly impenetrable. But Liam knew one thing. He had to get her out, no matter the cost. Grabbing his comlink, Liam reached out to the only person who might have the contacts and resources to help him pull off a rescue. Marcus, I need your help. It took a few moments, but Marcus's voice crackled through the calm, laced with frustration. Liam, what the hell have you gotten yourself into now? Ilara's been captured by the Confederation, Liam said, his voice steady but urgent. They took her to one of their detention centers. I need to get her out. There was a long pause on the other end before Marcus spoke again, his tone a mixture of disbelief and concern. You're talking about breaking into a Confederation facility. Do you even hear yourself? You could get killed, and if they find out you helped her, it'll be worse than that. Liam's jaw clenched. I don't care. I can't let them take her. She didn't deserve any of this. She's not the monster they think she is. Another pause, this time longer. Finally, Marcus sighed. You're insane, but I've got a contact who might be able to help. He runs black market tech out of the outer sectors. If anyone can get you the kind of firepower or cloaking tech you'll need to break into a Confederation facility, it's him. I'll set up a meeting. Relief flooded through Liam. Thank you, Marcus. I owe you. Damn right you do, Marcus replied, the edge of a smirk in his voice. But you better survive this, or I'll come back from the grave just to kick your ass. After securing the meeting, Liam made his way to the outskirts of New Terra, where Marcus's contact operated out of a rundown hangar. The place was crawling with smugglers and shady traders, but Liam kept his head down as he made his way inside. The man Marcus had connected him with was a grizzled, older Terran named Rulok, who had clearly seen his share of battles. Rulok's eyes narrowed as Liam explained the situation. You're looking to break into a high-security Confederation facility to rescue a Quasari? Rulok said, leaning back in his chair with a skeptical look. You've got more guts than brains, kid. Can you help me or not? Liam asked, his patience wearing thin. Rulok chuckled. I've got the tech you need, but getting in is the easy part. Getting out? That's where most people fail. You better have a plan for what happens after you bust her out. I'll figure that out once I have her, Liam replied, his eyes burning with determination. Rulok shook his head, impressed by the younger man's resolve. You're either the bravest or dumbest human I've ever met, but all right, I'll help you. He handed Liam a small device, a personal cloaking shield, that would render him invisible to most security systems for a short period. Along with it, Rulok provided some explosive charges for any locked doors and a plasma pistol, just in case things got messy. This'll give you a fighting chance, Rulok said. But once you use the cloak, you've got about 20 minutes before it burns out. After that, you're on your own. Liam took the device, nodding. Thanks, Rulok. Don't thank me yet, kid, Rulok muttered. Good luck. With the gear in hand, Liam made his way to the Confederation facility where Alara was being held. The structure was imposing, its sleek black walls towering over the surrounding desert landscape. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, and surveillance drones hovered above, casting ominous shadows in the dim light of dusk. Liam crouched behind a rocky outcrop, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath and activated the cloaking device. Instantly, his body shimmered, then vanished from sight. The world around him seemed to grow quieter, as if the cloak dampened not just his appearance but the very air around him. With his invisibility shield active, Liam moved quickly but cautiously toward the facility's entrance. The guards, unaware of his presence, continued their patrols as he slipped past them, his breath shallow as he navigated through the security checkpoints. Inside, the facility was cold and sterile, its corridors lined with polished metal and humming with the quiet buzz of machinery. Liam's mind raced, trying to remember the layout he'd studied from stolen schematics. Alara would be held in the high-security wing, no doubt restrained in a cell that suppressed her abilities. Time was running out. The cloak would only last for so long, and he had no room for mistakes. He reached the high-security wing, carefully disabling a set of laser tripwires with one of Rulok's devices. As he rounded the corner, his heart nearly stopped when he saw two guards standing in front of a heavy metal door, the door to Alara's cell. Liam reached for one of the explosive charges Rulok had given him, setting it on the wall near the guards and programming it for a low-yield blast. He activated the charge and took cover as the explosion went off with a muffled thud, sending the guards sprawling to the ground. Before they could recover, Liam moved in, knocking both guards unconscious with swift, well-placed strikes. He turned to the door and quickly hacked the control panel, his fingers moving with practiced precision. The door slid open with a hiss, and there she was, Alara, bound in energy restraints, her glowing eyes dim but still burning with defiance. Liam, she whispered, her voice thick with surprise. He rushed to her side, disabling the restraints with Rulok's tools. I'm getting you out of here. Alara stood, her body weak but her determination unshaken. You shouldn't have come. It's too dangerous. Liam smiled grimly. I've come this far. I'm not leaving without you. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. Reinforcements. The explosion had drawn attention. Time to go, Liam said, handing Alara the plasma pistol he had brought. Can you fight? A glimmer of her old strength flashed in her eyes as she took the weapon. I always can. Together, they moved through the facility, taking down guards with swift precision. Alara, though weakened, fought with the grace and power of someone who had spent her entire life defending herself. Liam was right by her side, guiding her through the maze of hallways and checkpoints. As they reached the outer perimeter, the alarm blared, and the drones swooped down, scanning for intruders. The cloak had worn off by now, and they were fully exposed. They know we're here, Liam said, firing at one of the drones. Alara looked at him, her eyes glowing brighter now. Then let me show them why they should be afraid. With a fierce cry, she unleashed her powers, bending the energy around her in a dazzling display of raw force. The drones short-circuited and crashed to the ground, and the walls of the facility trembled as her energy coursed through the structure, sending waves of disruption through the security systems. Liam stood beside her, awestruck by the sheer magnitude of her power. But where others might have seen something to fear, he saw only the beauty of her strength. The strength she had spent so long suppressing. "Let's get out of here," he said, grabbing her hand. And together they ran, escaping into the night as the Confederation facility crumbled behind them, their bond stronger than ever before. The Confederation facility lay in ruins behind them, a heap of smoldering metal and broken technology. Liam and Alara moved quickly across the desert, the dim glow of the distant city of New Terra on the horizon. Their breath came in ragged bursts, but they couldn't afford to stop. The Confederation would send more troops, and soon. Liam stole a glance at Alara. She was visibly exhausted, her body swaying slightly as they pressed on, though she tried to mask it with her usual stoic expression. The power she had unleashed during their escape had drained her, and Liam knew they needed to find a safe place soon. "Can you keep going?" Liam asked, concern clear in his voice. Alara nodded, though her movements were sluggish. "I'll manage. But we can't stay on this planet much longer." Liam frowned. "What do you mean?" She stopped walking, turning to face him, her glowing violet eyes now dimmed by fatigue. "The Confederation won't stop. You saw what I did back there. They'll brand me as a greater threat than ever. They'll come with more than just soldiers next time. They'll send their elites, their hunters. You'll be in danger too, Liam." Liam's jaw tightened. He knew the risks, but hearing her say it aloud made it all the more real. "I don't care. We'll figure something out. But I'm not letting them take you." Alara's gaze softened, her usual guarded exterior crumbling in the face of Liam's unwavering resolve. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why do you keep risking your life for me?" The question hung in the air between them, heavier than the silence that followed. For a moment, Liam struggled to find the right words. It wasn't just because he felt responsible after everything that had happened. It wasn't just because he had seen her loneliness and decided to be the one person who wouldn't walk away. It was more than that. "I guess I see something in you that no one else does," Liam said finally, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling within him. "You're not a monster, Alara. You're just someone who's been forced into a corner. I've been in those corners too. I know what it's like to feel trapped, to feel like you have no choice but to fight. And I don't know. I just couldn't let you face it alone." Alara blinked, her expression unreadable. For so long, she had been treated as an outcast, a threat, a danger to be contained. No one had ever looked at her the way Liam did, without fear, without suspicion. Only with understanding. "I don't deserve this," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "You deserve a lot more than you've been given," Liam replied, taking a step closer. "But you have to believe that." Alara hesitated as if on the verge of saying something more, but before she could respond, a distant rumble reached their ears, the unmistakable sound of ships approaching. "They're coming," Liam muttered, looking to the sky. Dark shapes were cutting through the atmosphere, descending toward the planet. Alara's eyes narrowed. "We need to move, now." Liam nodded, his mind racing. They couldn't go back to New Terra. It was only a matter of time before the Confederation locked down the entire city. But where could go? Every option seemed like a dead end. Except one. "There's an old smuggler's port not far from here," Liam said, urgency creeping into his voice. "It's mostly underground, hidden from official sensors. We might be able to find a ship and get off-world before they catch up to us." Alara didn't need any convincing. "Lead the way." They sprinted across the desert, the rumbling of the approaching ships growing louder with each passing second. Liam's heart pounded in his chest as they neared the entrance to the smuggler's port, hidden beneath a large rock formation. He tapped a sequence on the hidden console and a narrow door slid open, revealing a dimly lit tunnel that led deep underground. Inside, the port was bustling with activity. Smugglers, traders, and all manner of unsavory characters moved about, conducting their shady business. It was the kind of place that operated on a simple rule. Don't ask questions, and you won't have to answer any. Liam guided Alara through the maze of corridors, searching for someone who could get them off-world fast. After a few tense negotiations with a grizzled pilot named Mur, they secured a small freighter. It wasn't much to look at, but it was fast and had enough stealth tech to avoid Confederation patrols. As they boarded the ship, Alara hesitated at the threshold, her eyes scanning the darkened sky beyond the port. The ships were closing in, their searchlights sweeping the desert below. "Once we leave this planet, there's no going back," Alara said, her voice quiet but resolute. Liam stepped beside her, his hand resting on her arm. "I know, but we'll find somewhere safe. We'll figure this out." Alara nodded, her trust in him unspoken but clear. Together, they boarded the freighter, the engines roaring to life as the ship lifted off the ground and shot into the sky. As the stars stretched out before them, Liam and Alara sat in the cockpit, the tension slowly ebbing away. But even as they left New Terra behind, both of them knew that the real danger was just beginning. The Confederation would stop at nothing to track them down. But for now, they had each other. The freighter shot through the stars, slipping into the relative safety of hyperspace. For a moment, it felt like they had made it, like they were free. But Liam knew better than to trust the calm between storms. Alara sat beside him in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the swirling colors of hyperspace outside the viewport. Though she was no longer restrained, the weight of her situation hadn't lifted. She was still hunted, still marked, and as long as the Confederation was after her, there would be no peace. Liam glanced over at her, noting the exhaustion in her posture. "We should be out of their range for a while. You can rest." Alara shook her head. "I can't rest, not with them hunting us." "They can't track us in hyperspace," Liam reassured her. "We have time." But even as the words left his mouth, the freighter's console blinked with a warning. A sudden jolt shook the ship as it dropped out of hyperspace. Liam's eyes widened as he checked the readings. "No," he muttered. "That's impossible." Alara leaned forward. "What is it?" "We've been pulled out of hyperspace by a disruptor field," Liam said, his voice tense. "They're here." Before he could say more, the ship's sensors detected another vessel. A sleek, menacing ship that appeared out of the blackness of space. It was a Confederation Hunter-class warship, faster and more dangerous than anything Liam had ever encountered. "They've sent a hunter after me," Alara said, her voice laced with both fear and anger. Liam's hands moved quickly across the controls, trying to activate the ship's stealth systems, but it was too late. The hunter ship was already on them, weapons locked. "We can't outrun them," Liam said, his mind racing. "Not in this ship." Alara's eyes glowed faintly as she stared out at the hunter ship. "Then we won't run." Liam's heart skipped a beat. "Alara, what are you planning?" She stood, her expression determined. "I have to face them, Liam. If we keep running, they'll never stop. I need to show them what I'm capable of." Liam grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm with you." Alara looked down at his hand, her eyes softening. "I know, but this is my fight." Before Liam could protest, the ship shook again and a voice crackled through the comm system. "Surrender, Quasari," the cold, mechanical voice of the Confederation hunter echoed through the cockpit. "Your escape ends here." Alara stepped forward, her glowing eyes fixed on the viewport. "I won't be your prisoner." She raised her hand, and the air around them began to hum with energy. The lights flickered, and the very structure of the freighter seemed to vibrate as Alara's power built, growing stronger with each passing second. Liam watched in awe as the space around them shifted, warping under the force of her abilities. He had seen her power before, but never like this. She was tapping into something deeper, something raw and unstoppable. The hunter ship fired its weapons, but Alara raised her hand and the plasma bolts dissipated before they could reach the freighter. The hunter ship shuddered, its systems failing as Alara's energy overwhelmed it. Liam stared, his heart pounding. Alara. With a final surge of power, Alara unleashed a wave of energy that rippled through space, enveloping the hunter ship. The vessel's lights flickered, and then, in an instant, it was gone, disintegrated into nothingness. The freighter was left floating in the silence of space, the only sound the quiet hum of the ship's systems. Alara lowered her hand, her body trembling with the effort of what she had just done. Liam rushed to her side, catching her before she could collapse. "Alara, are you okay?" She nodded weakly, though her body was clearly drained. "I'm fine. I just need to rest." Liam held her, his mind reeling from what he had just witnessed. Alara's power was unlike anything he had ever seen, unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. And now the Confederation would know it too. As he guided her to a seat, Liam knew one thing for certain. They would never stop coming for her. But no matter how many hunters they sent, Liam would stand by her side, and together they would face whatever came next. The destruction of the Confederation hunter ship sent ripples throughout the galaxy. News of the encounter spread, igniting debates on countless worlds about the true nature of Alara's powers and the threat she posed, or didn't pose, to the galaxy. As the Confederation prepared its next move, Alara and Liam sought refuge on a distant, uncharted world known only to a few smugglers and outcasts. Liam had managed to procure the coordinates from an old pilot's archive, ensuring their hideout would be off any standard maps. The planet was lush, with dense forests and deep blue oceans, a stark contrast to the barren deserts of New Terra. It was a place where they could catch their breath, where Alara could recover from the immense strain of using her powers at such a scale. They built a small cabin near the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea. The days were filled with fishing, exploring, and for Liam, learning more about Alara's culture and her abilities in a way that didn't involve conflict. For Alara, it was a time of healing, not just physically, but emotionally. Liam's unwavering presence and acceptance helped her reconcile parts of her identity she had long feared. One evening, as they watched the sunset from their porch, Alara spoke up, her voice soft but clear. "Liam, you've given up so much for me. Your home, your life on New Terra. Why stay? Why not go back?" Liam turned to look at her, his eyes steady. "Because my place is with you. I've seen what you can do, Alara. Not just the power, but the good in you, the desire to do right by it. That's worth standing by." Alara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I'm scared, Liam. Every day, I'm scared that they'll come for us, that I'll have to fight again." Liam reached out, taking her hand. "And we'll face that too, together. No matter what comes, Alara, I'm with you, until the end." Her grip tightened on his hand, and she nodded, a silent vow passing between them. Months passed, and the galaxy's interest in Alara began to wane as no further incidents occurred. The Confederation, unable to justify a continued hunt on rumors and scattered reports, reduced their efforts, though they never fully withdrew. Alara and Liam used this time to deepen their understanding of each other and the universe. One night, while sitting under the vast canopy of stars, Alara considered the path they had traveled. The peace they found on this secluded planet seemed a stark contrast to the chaos that had once defined their lives. She looked over at Liam, who was sketching out plans for a small boat they were building together. "Liam, what if we could use my abilities to help others? Not as a weapon, but as a tool for change," she mused out loud. Liam looked up, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "Maybe there are places in the galaxy, like worlds affected by natural disasters, where I can help. Where we can help. We could make a real difference, Liam, not just run from who I am." Liam smiled, the idea resonating deeply with him. "I think that's a fantastic idea. We'll start small, find somewhere we can make an impact. This could be the start of something amazing, Alara." They spent the next few weeks planning, reaching out to contacts Liam still trusted, and researching potential locations where Alara's powers could assist in ecological restoration or help stabilize climates on struggling worlds. Their first mission was a small, drought-stricken planet in the Outer Rim. Alara, focusing her abilities more precisely than ever, managed to induce rain and restore water to the parched land. The planet's inhabitants, initially wary, soon celebrated their arrival, their cheers a stark contrast to the fear she had once inspired. Each successful mission built Alara's confidence and the galaxy's trust in her. News of their efforts spread, changing the narrative around Alara's powers from fear to fascination and hope. Years later, as they returned to their home planet, now a base of operations for their humanitarian missions, Alara looked out over the sea, her heart full. The fear that had once defined her existence had transformed into a beacon of hope for many. Liam joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You've changed so many lives, Alara, including mine." Alara leaned into him, her eyes on the horizon. "And you changed mine, Liam. You taught me that fear doesn't have to define us. It can be overcome." Together they watched the stars, each one a symbol of the countless worlds they had touched. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and for the first time, Alara felt connected to it all, a part of something greater than herself. And as the stars twinkled above, mirroring the bioluminescent waves below, Liam and Alara knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, their journey together was far from over. It was just another chapter in a story that spanned the stars, a story of fear turned into hope, and of two souls who found each other in the vastness of the universe.